Okay, and that's movement, I think, in a good direction. And the reason that it's happening is because the utilities see the price of solar, of course, coming down, but they also see the price of this battery storage coming down. And they recognize that more and more people and more businesses are starting to put battery storage into their, what we call behind the meter, like in their basement, in their garage, whatever. And they're going to buy electricity when it's cheap, and then they're going to run off their battery when the electricity is more expensive. Okay? This is going to cut into the utilities business model, and they're starting to recognize this. So they are going to evolve over time to becoming, to thinking of themselves less as the sole generators of electric power and more as being the facilitators of electric services and power and transmission services. And the companies in Europe that have evolved in that direction are making more money than they've ever made in the past. So it's a successful model, and we know it can work. But some of our utilities are just going to take a while, I think, to get to that point. But I do foresee a time when, just about every new house is going to have solar panels. I hope every parking lot has solar panels. I hope we'll see a whole lot more solar everywhere. That said, you should know that I talked to Missy Stokes. Dr. Missy Stokes is the director of the energy transition for the city of Ann Arbor. Ann Arbor is like really pushing the envelope in the state of Michigan as far as transitioning to clean energy. And they did a satellite survey of the whole city of Ann Arbor, and they imagined every conceivable surface, rooftop, parking lot, playground, whatever it might be, where they could possibly put solar. And they came up with potentially an installation of 400 megawatts of solar capacity. Now, the peak demand for the city of Ann Arbor is 440 megawatts currently. Once we electrify everything, including transportation, they expect that it's going to be 800 megawatts. So even with solar panels on every conceivable nook and cranny in the city of Ann Arbor, they're not going to be able to completely supply all of their electricity just from that. And there's the National Renewable Energy Lab has done similar studies that more or less say the same thing. We're going to need utility scale wind and utility scale solar, and probably obviously storage, obviously transmission, but probably some of the newer technologies. My bet is that deep geothermal is going to be a dark horse that's going to surprise everybody in the next 5 years. But so going forward, it has to be a mix. We're right now, because of the urgency of the energy transition from an economic competitive standpoint, and also from the urgency of climate change, we need to deploy whatever we got right now. And what we got right now is utility scale solar and wind. And the faster we can get those out there, the more successful we're going to be as a country, the more we're going to preserve our technological leadership, and hopefully the more we're going to preserve a living planet for our future generations.
Here's a quick one, Peter.
Sure.
What's the lifespan of a solar panel, and how often do they need to be replaced?
Say it again, Mark.
What's the lifespan?
Oh, great question.
Operating lifespan of solar panels, and how often should they be replaced?
Right. So there are solar panels from the 1970s that are still generating power. They're not particularly efficient. They weren't as good of panels when they were first manufactured, but they still work. I mean, they're solid state. I mean, if Apple didn't, change the operating system so often, this phone will probably work for who knows how long, right? So there's not a whole lot to wear out on a solar panel. So one of the potentials for solar farms at end of life is that the solar panels may just go into a kind of a secondary market for people in this country that want cheap solar panels, or perhaps people in the developing world where there might be a market for cheap but still very usable solar panels. And so, as far as what the lifetime is, my understanding from engineers is that over 30 years or so, they will probably degrade a few percentage points. I believe that the solar panels that are currently being deployed have like 25 or 30-year guarantees on them, and but that's just sort of a minimum. So I expect that panels that are produced today, many of them will still be operable many decades into the future.
We've got some big thinkers in the crowd here. Is there a minimum size in acres that you need to make a project economical or cost effective for a solar farm?
I don't know that number. That's a good number. That's a good question to ask to a developer, and I suspect it's somewhat dependent on a particular location.
Okay. Quick question on the solar spray for cold weather panels to shed snow. Any toxicity?
I don't know that answer, but I suspect that somebody's asking that question.
Okay, well, we hope so. And can you discuss the subsidies currently in place for large-scale solar and how this would compare with other forms of energy production?
Well, it's important to know that all forms of energy are getting subsidies. And in the case of solar and wind, we have production tax credits that are helping with the deployment of those. In the case of gas and oil, we have all kinds of subsidies that go into deducting the cost of exploration and things of that nature. And I think what most of the solar developers will tell you is that they expect that there is a great desire to jumpstart this industry right now and deploy as much as we possibly can in this coming decade. I think most people expect that those subsidies are going to come off at a certain point, and that technology will be considered more or less mature. And so I think that's everybody's expectation.
All right. What about claims that the mining and processing of chemicals needed for solar generating panels and batteries is harmful to the environment and prohibitively expensive?
Sure. Okay, so I just made a video on this, and I talked to an expert at Rice University who had done a study of the materials required for the energy transition. And what's really important to understand is that most people have no idea how much coal, for instance, we mine. In 2020, something like 8 billion tons of coal worldwide, and then another 4 billion tons each, I think, of gas and oil were extracted. In that same year, we had about 80,000 tons of, say, lithium. Lithium is something that we're going to be using for batteries in electric cars. Our phones, our computers, our devices all have lithium batteries. So lithium would be one of these key minerals that people look at. So in 2020, we mined literally 100,000 times more coal than we did lithium. 100,000 times more coal. And then again, that much in terms of oil and gas, all with all of the impacts that go with that. For every ton of coal that you take out of Appalachia, for instance, West Virginia, you have to remove 16 tons of what is called overburden. And overburden just means those beautiful, unique ecosystem mountaintops that they remove to get at the coal. We're going to get rid of coal. Coal is dying. Coal is going away. And it's going away because we are replacing it with these newer technologies, which, yeah, there's going to be mining for lithium, there's going to be mining for other things, but the relevant impacts are going to be much, much smaller. So my expert at Rice University, whose name is going to come to me, Jim Crane, said, they basically added all the numbers up, and they said that with all of the so-called rare earths and unique minerals and stuff that we would need for the energy transition, it is actually like 400 times less total mining and extraction than what we have with coal, oil, and gas. So this, a lot of people are, totally get it, that people are concerned that we don't, replace something bad with something that is equally bad. That is not the case. We are moving to a different set of technologies that are going to have radically different impacts than the historic technologies that we have used. And let me give you one more example. Again, going to lithium. Lithium has been mined traditionally, but there is a place in Southern California called the Salton Sea. And the Salton Sea exists over a very rich geothermal, it's like volcanic vents that are very close to the surface. So there have been some geothermal plants built there because they're easy to build. You just like punch a hole in the ground and you've got hot water coming up and you can turn a turbine and you can generate electricity. And not too long ago, somebody looked at that water and said, are there minerals in that water? I bet there are. And sure enough, the water's full of lithium. And so now General Motors and Warren Buffett